All in. On this episode of the Battlefield Show, Julian and I are talking about the major announcement from Battlefield regarding the series' future. EA commits heavily to the franchise, including the formation of a new dedicated studio. Next, a further analysis of 2042's Season 2. Are there problems with the new weapons? Finally, what are the streamers' thoughts on the upcoming class system? Joining us tonight is Twitch streamer, YouTuber, and Battlefield veteran DsciSiv, who is the #1 player in the world in terms of kills and S tier level. We'll get his thoughts on all of this and more. This is the Battlefield Show.
Okay, we are joined here with our guest, DsciSiv. Welcome to the show, man. We want to first just start to get to know you. It's your first time on the show. So, what's your Battlefield background? Let's just start with, hey, what's your first Battlefield game?
Yeah. So, hi, everyone. I'm DsciSiv. Currently, people know me from Twitch and being on the leaderboards and things like that. But my personal background for Battlefield is I come all the way from Battlefield 2. I missed out on 1942. But I started with Battlefield 2, and I actually got to the point where I was on a competitive team and played competitively for Battlefield 2 all the way through BF2 Pro and Team Warfare League. From there, I played every title you could think of all the way up until BF5. I didn't touch that game, and I'm kind of glad I didn't based on all the reviews everyone else was telling me about. Battlefield 1 was kind of the last one that I touched before I fell off and went back to like Call of Duty and things like that, just finding other games to play. And so Battlefield 1 was fun until they got rid of the movement mechanics. They kind of nerfed it in the ground to even out the playing field, which, as you guys all know, once you shorten the skill gap, it doesn't make the game better. But anyways, so I didn't want another kind of World War-esque play style, which was Battlefield 5. It just went to the next era. So I didn't play it because it just wasn't something I was looking for. And now I came back to 2042. I told myself that I was going to come back to streaming after all my personal stuff finally grazed over, came back to streaming, and unfortunately this is the game we have, but because I was committed, I just kind of stuck it out, and this is where we're at now.
Committed is an understatement. You have put in a lot of hours, and you are like how do I say it, a very good source of feedback for not just the community, but for the devs themselves. Probably have listened your feedback. I think a few times I read on Twitter of you go through a lot of the weapons. I mean, you've tier 1'd all of the Season 2 weapons already. It's barely been a week or so. You are the feedback tester. You are the beta tester that has put in all this work, and you don't even get paid, man. This is crazy.
No,
but yeah, which sucks. They should pay all of us, really, because we're all the beta testers. But yeah, you're a valuable source, and that's why I wanted you on the show and to go over this stuff. But before we get to that, you mentioned you were playing competitive BF2. How was that like? Were there a lot of people? I know you're pretty young as well, a young whippersnapper there. And so what was that like? What kind of, do you remember any of those, competitive moments? Did you guys win anything, or how was that like?
Yeah, we competed. We won 2 seasons in a row, and we, there wasn't any money in it. It was more of a Team Warfare League. Early on was, for funsies type deal. And so we actually got a couple of merchandise. We got like a shirt and a hat and some other stuff for the computer. So what we did was we all signed the hat, and then we had the leader of the org at the time that he had it as like a trophy on his shelf. And so we all passed it around, and everyone got to sign the hat. So that was pretty cool. That was probably the highlight of it, everything. But yeah, I think I was like 9 or 10 playing BF2 back then. So
That is crazy.
And, yeah,
you're a young whippersnapper.
yeah, and because most of the other guys were older Battlefield dads, in their mid to late 20s, early 30s with kids and everything. So I was like the fragger for the team. I mean, seriously. So everyone was like, "Oh yeah, you're the best player, so you're gonna go do everything." And I'm like, I'm just here to play, so I'll do whatever you tell me type deal.
Yeah, DsciSiv, the prodigy FPS player, and then after Battlefield, you went into Call of Duty, right?
Correct. Yes.
And so, what was your first Call of Duty?
So I've played every Call of Duty besides the Advanced Warfare series.
Oh, good.
And so I was not a fan of the jetpacking. The kind of once it started moving boots off the ground, it was a turn off for me back then. It's just COD Ghost was the last competitive one that I played. So I wasn't a fan of the jetpack and the wall running. I'm like, this isn't Titanfall, but everyone was trying to copy the era of gaming at that time. That Titanfall 1 was a little popular when it first came out. So I feel like that was kind of the move for everyone to kind of copy, which was fine, but wasn't my play style.
And what drew you back to 2042?
Copium. No. So really it was the new title, right? It was the Battlefield. That's what I streamed initially when I first started streaming was Battlefield 4. So when I streamed Battlefield 4, I was known on Xbox. I was number 3 in the world for stealth jets because I played a lot of air superiority. So that's kind of where I grew my initial community. And so after streaming Battlefield, COD, Destiny, Counter-Strike, and coming back, I streamed BF4 right before this came out. I told myself I wanted to keep it at a Battlefield community at its foundation and then branch off from there as things progress. So when I watched the trailer, I'm like, all right, this looks pretty cool. And then, you play the beta and you're like, all right, well, this is terrible. And then you play the game and you're like, how is this worse than the beta? So anyway, that's a whole other topic. But yeah.
It was back to modern gaming. I mean, was that the big thing to bring you back, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a gamer my entire life, right? That's what my upbringing was with my dad. So when this came out, I saw it as an opportunity to kind of get back into the swing of things. My life finally started calming down with my personal life, so I was able to focus on myself, take care of all my other stuff, and then just go back to gaming, which is what I want to do. That's my passion outside of work. So
yeah, and you working full time, yeah?
Yeah, I work full time. I basically do 2 full-time jobs at this point, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can see that. Yeah, so you clocked in how many hours for 2042?
I think I'm just a little over 1850 on the tracker.
Ooh, almost 2,000. Damn, that's like a lifetime for me for a single game. I usually clock in around like 1,000 for BF2. I think it was like 1,100, and then I ended up moving on. But man, that's double. That's a lot of gaming. So, but yeah, Grav, did you have anything else to add for or ask about DsciSiv?
No, I think he pretty much covered it. I think it's just more impressive that not only is he, the number 1 highest tier S tier level right now in 2042. Like he's got the skill set to keep it up and just to prove himself every time. I think he's holding a 5.7 KD total like right now after almost 1,900 hours is pretty incredible. And I think if memory serves, you were actually you were false positives in 2042, and you actually had the devs. There was a little incident, right, where they actually had to unban you.
Yeah. I actually got banned while I was at work one day. It was pretty funny. I got an email, so they were doing the random email surveys for the game, and I got an email from EA. I was like, oh, they randomly emailed me. Sure, I'll give them feedback. And it was like, no, you're banned. So I'm sitting here thinking, what? So I was, I laughed. I'm like, there's no way. So by the time I even got home, before that happened, I made a post on Twitter. I screenshotted it, and I'm like, dude, there's no way, right? I put in all these hours. I'm like, dude, I'm literally number 1 on the board. You really think I would cheat to get there type deal, right? Military background, upbringing, everything else like that. Like, that's not in my character. So I'm like, there's no way you guys just banned me, right? And before I even got home, I logged in. I was going to do my rebuttal and everything. Looked at the EA account and the actual account information. The ban was already overturned by the time I got home. I didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, I got an email from the community managers apologizing to me, basically, and my account's whitelisted.
Wow, it's insane. And yet you had community managers that were instantly reaching out. They were like, hey, this is a mistake.
Yeah. Like almost right away.
That's pretty good. That's lucky,
good
too.
For them.
I'm glad they saw that and reverted that. But also, you have joined a team, right? DZ. I don't know much about DZ. They kind of came out of nowhere for the Battlefield scene. Can you tell me a little bit about them? What do you think about the team?
Yeah, so DZ Originals is the full name, and they originally were a Call of Duty trick-shotting team, so they still have the Call of Duty roster. And the owner Prime wanted to branch out to other games, and so I talked to Kinetic, who was already in there, and he's like, "Hey, if you want a spot, you're more than welcome to." And then once I talked to Prime about it, it was just caught in Battlefield at the time. And he's like, yeah, I want to branch out to, Apex, Rocket League, things like that. And so I told him like that, I'm down. I'm for it. And if you need a lead for everything to kind of manage all the players, I'm for it. So I am one of the leads for Battlefield. And then I kind of give him my 2 cents feedback on the other parts of the team, because I have supervisory experience as a non-commissioned officer in the Air Force. So I do have supervisor positions, and I have a degree for that kind of stuff. So I'm more than welcome to give him my feedback when he asks for it. But outside of that, I just mainly run the Battlefield team. And really the whole point of the team is to make content, whether it's YouTube, on TikTok, streaming, whatever it is. It's not a competitive team. I'm not looking for like super fraggers. It's just a place for people to either play together or come together and make these like little team tages that we've already put out. So really the only criteria that I'm looking for is you're good at the game, you're good enough to make clips, and you're consistent with the content.
Right, content creation groups.
Yeah,
those are pretty good, man, and it seems to be working out for you pretty well. You're getting quite a follow on Twitch. Are you enjoying that?
Yeah, it's actually surprisingly nice to see that everything is slowly starting to take pace. And season 2 has been more than beneficial for a lot of people. I've seen the numbers slowly going up. It's obviously nowhere where it should be for the people who've been putting in all the work, but at least it's something. And so I just brain farted.
That's all right.
All good.
So the numbers
aren't,
yeah. So like the numbers aren't there, right? But the slow progression of the player base coming back, and people always coming in and asking questions like, "Hey, is the game good? It looks fun?" And unfortunately, got to hit him with the hard truth. Like it's like a 4.5 out of 10. I'm sorry, but if you want to try, go for it. I'm not going to tell people not to play the game if they want to try.
All right, so Battlefield has just made a major announcement, announcing a brand new studio in Seattle called Ridgeline Games Studio, and they're pretty much going to lead the narrative portion or the single-player portion of the next Battlefield game, which is in pre-production. This is all during the 20th anniversary of Battlefield, which we'll get into really quick. But yes, you can see in the article there, Ridgeline Games is now added. I don't know what happened to EA Gothenburg. Remember that? That they were a technology group, I think, for 2042. I think they're the Tornado Boys, but I'm not really sure about that. But they're like no longer there, but they're also keeping Industrial Toys that are doing the mobile game, which I don't know what the hell's going on with that one.
We haven't heard anything about it. Last we heard from it, they were having alphas and maybe even an early beta for Battlefield Mobile. We haven't heard any news on that in a long time.
Yeah, who are the other ones? A Ripple Effect, DsciSiv is coming back to work on the next Battlefield. But the big takeaway here is that they're double downing on the whole Battlefield universe. In previous statements on, I think there were like investor calls, they were talking about continuing making Battlefield games with a brand new team led by Vince Zampella and Rebecca Kutaz, who's now the leader, or I think the general manager there at DICE Sweden, I believe, and Christian Grass at Ripple Effect. And we also got Marcus Leto, who's also been tweeting up a bunch of stuff, trying to get feedback from the community about his single-player campaign. He's the co-creator of Halo, so maybe he could bring in some good characters coming into this. But I just want to get your guys' takes. Let's start with you, DsciSiv. What do you think about DICE and EA going forward with the Battlefield universe? Is this something they should start doing, especially off of 2042?
If we're talking about bringing in like a storyline back to the game, I mean, I'm for it. Really, I thought the Bad Company series was fantastic, right? And so for people who like single player storylines, this is something that is going to appease to those guys. So I'm not totally against it. And to be honest, man, I mean, 2042, I don't think is going to get any more content after season 4, kind of what you guys touched on last week. So really, at this point, they finish up with their 4 seasons, do their normal maintenance, and then they're going to cut ties and focus on the next title, which, I mean, that's probably their best move. So bringing in Ridgeline into creating storyline while they work on making this next title the best they can. And, it's the bar is set fairly low compared to what we have now. So, I mean, I don't see this as a negative as a whole. If it's a whole different part of the company working on it, right? They got one side working on the story and they got another side working on the multiplayer aspect. I think overall you're hitting both sides of the coin here. And I think that is a positive outcome for them if it turns out well.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this is a whole nother, been here, heard that, this is what 2042 sounded like, almost word for word. It's
Right.
like, we're revamping everything. We have a global team, bringing new technology to a new engine. That's basically what they're talking about now. But now this is a whole brand new leadership team. They got rid of a whole bunch of producers, GMs, and we're even losing Mr. Battlefield himself, who's moving on to new things, and he's been around forever. I remember watching trailers of him explaining Battlefield 2 Conquest to me. This dude's been around forever, and that's a shame. I really enjoyed a lot of his work there for Battlefield, so it's a real shame to see him go. But maybe this is the right time now that kind of out with the old and in with the new. And it's odd that this didn't start with 2042, man. It really, especially off of such a big low that is Battlefield 5, they really needed to hit this one out of the park. And if they didn't, I thought it was over. And then we just get a whole bunch of new people coming out of the woodwork for EA saying, no. This is our IP. We're going to keep going with this. They may only get 10% of our cash flow, but we're still going to keep this IP going because I personally think it's a really strong IP. But yeah, here we're at again. Do you guys think this is just a lot of talk? When are we going to start seeing some actual improvements and listening to player feedback? What they completely ignore this.
I think player feedback is something that DICE has done a really poor job on in the past several titles. I mean, generally as a whole, they're really only start to pay attention and put out changes if the community as a whole, if their Reddit is burning, if their forums are burning, if the community managers or the community leaders and the big YouTubers are complaining about the game over some serious changes, then they really don't have any much. I mean, the last time we ever saw this was with BF5 with the TTK change. That was the community up in arms. Yeah, and it was a rapid change where there was a lot of feedback. You could argue that the re-implementation of the class system is another one of those, hey, they're listening to the community moments but at this point in the game, that isn't the priority for the majority of the community. That ship has sailed in 2042.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think, DsciSiv?
Yeah, I agree, man. It's too far gone at this point. So with the whole coming back and revamping everything again, which is exactly what 2042 was. I mean, dude, you've got what two strikes on your belt. You know what I mean? This is the last ditch effort for them. They either put up or it's done. I mean, really, that's my opinion.
And the weird thing about it is that, like you said, Julian, it's really weird that they started now. I'm happy to see it. I really am.
Same.
But it's if they want to have a studio dedicated entirely to single player, I'm not gonna play it. I don't care about it. Unless they force me to unlock weapons or something through it, I don't care. I'm in it purely for the multiplayer. But if it gets new players and a new generation of players into the game, I'm all for it. And as long as it doesn't take away from the multiplayer's development, then I'm all for it. The biggest thing that I'm happy to see that Marcus Leto is on Twitter, constantly asking the community, what did you like most about the Battlefield series? What do you like in terms of vehicles? What do you like in terms of the campaign or the atmosphere or the environment? about past
Yeah.
games. And I'm like, that's great and all. But this shifting of the guard in terms of DICE's leadership, it's a double-edged sword. Like, on one hand, you get rid of experienced devs who have recently, as of the past 2 or 3 games, really made really bad decisions in terms of the scope of the game, in terms of the creative decisions and the features that they want to put in the game, which have drawn negative feedback and a backlash, rightfully so. On the flip side, I worry about new blood coming in from outside the Battlefield series. It's one thing to have a new creative director, but it's another thing if that director doesn't understand what made the series good in the first place. Like, if they don't understand that BF2 had, spectator mode and mod support and private servers and all these communities to build up on, or BF4 features such as, airspeed control or, below radar mechanics. These are features that are just, they should be inundated into the development of a Battlefield game, and without that knowledge, we just get this new team. It's essentially doing the same thing with the top level of developers that they did with the 2042 game with the lower level developers. Like, you got this new generation of DICE hires that maybe weren't as experienced with working with the Frostbite engine. In this case now, maybe they're not maybe these new creative officers aren't working hand in hand with the Frostbite engine, but they're working with the series as a whole. And if they don't understand its past, then I worry about what the next game could look like. It might not look like the Battlefield games of old that we really want.
Even though in the article they did mention that they are keeping to its core, and not forgetting about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They kind of, I guess, like I said, it kind of feels like, 2042 pre-production talk and articles. Like, it just sounds like they're just doing another restart, back to modern gaming and all that. But one thing is that I wanted to discuss with you, especially DsciSiv, is back in the day when we did like the whole premium service, it also came with the feedback sessions, and they created in Battlefield 4. They started the whatchamacallit. What was the program called again? GraViTyXIII.
Are you talking about the
test environment? Yeah. Community test environment. Sorry, yeah. CTE. So when they started CTE, I can't believe a brain fart on that. It was a huge thing to bring back quality of life updates, consistently work on just making the game playable, and it took them quite a long time to do that during after the release of the game. And slowly but surely, they kept reporting that the CTE cost too much money to run and too much manpower to keep up. Do you believe that, DsciSiv? Is that something they should go back to, despite them saying or giving those excuses?
Yeah, I don't think it actually took the manpower. Maybe the funds to add extra servers. I have no idea, but that just sounds like a catch-22 to get out of providing that for the community, really. And CTE servers are great. I mean, I played Smite before, and they always did CTE with new patches. So they always have the pre-patch games, and you could test out all the new updates before it went live in the actual game. So that is something that would be very beneficial to bring back. So people like myself and everyone else who actually kind of gives 2 cents about the game to at least try to make it better, to go play in these servers and then provide valuable feedback. I mean, dude, the most memorable thing I can think of in BF4 was when the FAMAS first came out, and that thing was just insane. I mean, the first day we did scrims, we're all like, no, this is banned. We're not using it anymore. And then for like a solid week, you would just beam people with it. It was great. But they got nerfed almost instantly because they listened, you know what I mean, from the CTE environment. So
even BF1 as well. They had feedback sessions with popular YouTubers and stuff, and even them, and the game changers, and even them brought up, like, when I think In the Name of the Tsar came out, they had a ridiculously overpowered LMG that had like no recoil, and it was just going crazy. But they found out about that before they released the package. And when we got it, I mean, it was recoil bouncing all over the place. It wasn't the best experience, but they caught it before they released it. All right, and I feel like one play session of Breakthrough on Orbital in the beta before the game even released would have been eye-opening to so many people. All you had to do was one round, I swear, one round, and they would have taken the rooftop objective. I mean,
or the
or the
climbing
hovercraft,
hovercrafts.
like, well, maybe a couple days for people to realize you can do that.
But the
I don't
call
know,
downs on the
'cause
rooftop are the biggest thing, yeah.
the call downs and it's just the campy and whatnot. This is something that was day one. They didn't test that with the community, and I feel like they need to bring that back. Any thoughts on that, guys? On bringing CTE back, perhaps, or something like it? Like, what the heck?
One, that should absolutely be a thing in general, but I don't buy that whole money argument at all, considering, one, we're talking about Battlefield 4 here, which had a load of people constantly buying DLC packs and premium, so it's not like they weren't starved for cash when it came to BF4. When it came to other games, I mean, BF1 had the same thing. A lot of DLCs, a lot of premium content, and like you said, they did put it in BF1 to an extent as well.
Yeah.
I don't know where this.
The studio lost motivation.
It's really
right away.
That's really what it is, because it's not that difficult to put out a community manager and say, we want to test this thing. Here, go at it. Type of thing. Where all you got to do is put up a server with a limited patch or something like that. It's not. This has been
apparently
done
that's
so
not
many
how
times
that works. Yeah, there's so many like excuses they come up with. There's no like preventative action when it comes to even little things like UI. Like we heard that's where the whole no tech issue came in for like Battlefield 5. Why isn't this planned out in advance? Even in 2042, it seems like they're putting in a new UI team, making it look cool, and then all of a sudden now we have less content. Or
the other interesting thing is,
like, it's weird.
They say they have no money, but at the same time, here we go with this massive investment in a whole new studio, specifically. Like, just that's a lot. You got a whole team of people, years of development time. Like, you couldn't find a small chunk of your budget just to devote to one guy or two guys in a team, just having a couple private servers just to test out some server side thing with balance. It just drives me crazy.
Yeah, I think that's a thing they really need to start doing. I want more. Even if they want to keep their game changers, fine. Just have them play extensively before you release the game. Just keep doing more and more play sessions as time goes on, even the single player if you must. But if you need to do network testing, don't just do one network alpha test like they did in 2042, right? Where it was buggy as hell and things weren't even loaded as all gray box or whatever. Sure, you could do that. Gray box is great for testing. Like, just do all of that with more people, more community members. They left us all in the dust for BF5 and 2042. The new studios really need to start bringing us back because, dude, we're pretty much the testers. We're the beta testers. Just like the art said.
And I get with 2042, there is this whole excuse of COVID, and I get that they publicly announced that they did not have the in-person resources to hire, the normal game testers that they would, especially the in-person testers, and I get that. But still, you have to have some sort of quality assurance team internally that might play the game and say, the net code is terrible, the game is buggy, the frame rate's awful. You can't, calling things off vehicles on buildings is a really dumb idea. There needs to be something. Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that down, let us know what you guys think in the comments section below. Let's just move on. It looks like we got through that really quickly, Grav. So let's just move on to the next topic here. Okay, well, let's get into Season 2 talk here. DsciSiv, you have mastered all of the new content. here. So what do you think about, let's just start with the guns and their attachments. You got any takes on how that's going for you?
So actually, since we're going to bring that up, let me give you guys some links here from my Twitter page about the two biggest issues with the guns themselves, specifically the M16 and then the visual recoil with the AM40 and the PF51. So give me one second here.
None of this has been vaulted. I don't know if they can vault attachments. I think you were discussing that, Gravity. But they can vault like a gun. They can vault something as specific as Dozer's shield, or was it all of Dozer? I don't remember.
It was Dozer's shield, and then I think they disabled Dozer separately.
They disabled. Okay,
yeah.
So you couldn't even play as Dozer at the time. Cool. Gotcha. So yeah, it doesn't seem like they can update certain guns without a client update. But they can vault things whenever they want.
Yep.
But also they were able to nerf a specialist Pike, GSU Pike, just out of nowhere without a hot fix patch or anything. They just kind of just did it.
Okay.
Overnight.
We have a couple clips here from DsciSiv. DsciSiv, you want to explain the first one here?
Yeah, let's see what you got.
Yeah, so the biggest issue here with the first clip is if you throw a throwable like a sensor ball and use a gadget, like I threw the spawn beacon down and then threw a sensor ball and then ADS with my secondary, this is what you get. You get some crazy on drugs Rainbow Six like peaking here, going violently left to right, and it was the funniest thing to me when it first happened. And so I kept trying to figure out how this kept going on. And
how do you repeat that? How do you repeat that again?
You put down a gadget and throw your throwable and switch to your sidearm. Specifically this. It doesn't work with the semi-auto handguns, just this one specifically and the AM40. It'll violently shake your screen and give you this like montage-esque feel to the game, and it's totally unnecessary. And I don't know how that this got away with getting through the playtest session, because surely somebody in the playtest with all the YouTubers would throw their throwable and then switch to this. So I'm a little lost as to how this got by. But anyways, it's funny, but after a while it started to get frustrating to the point where I just wouldn't even throw my sensor ball anymore if I wanted to use the sidearm.
And then what do you think generally about the PF51 in general?
It's not a sidearm.
That's a pocket P90.
It's a pocket, pocket P90, and it has the same damage models as the MP9, so I call it the pocket MP9 just to keep relevant with the game. But it literally has the exact same damage models as the MP9 if you use subsonic rounds. 22 to the body, 27.5 to the head. So
yeah, it's a little ridiculous. I mean, we always thought that, maybe the BF4, the G18 was like, oh yeah, this how can you get any crazier than this? And then okay, we'll just add the what is it from BF5? The 50 round bullet hose.
What the? Oh man.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't touch the game.
Yeah, just add that as a sidearm in this game. It's just kind of wild. Anyway, yeah.
What was that? Oh, I
think a mental block on it, but it's all right. Yeah, everybody knows
And what's funny about this is I had a viewer actually point this out to you. In the weapon description in game, it says that the round magazine initial start is supposed to be 17. So my guess is they just totally scrapped the other magazines and just said, hey, once you unlock it, you get 50 rounds. Like, you don't have to do anything to get it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So.
All right. And then all right. So we got the second clip here as well. So what you got on the second clip?
Okay, so the second clip is probably my biggest complaint with the gun, and I posted this on Reddit, and of course everyone is like, why does this matter? Oh, who cares that it's copy-pasted? So the problem with this, when you play the clip, and the M16, no joke, copy-paste recoil pattern. I'm not saying that the gun responds the same way that the PKP does, because the PKP has a more horizontal shake to it as it goes the vertical line up and to the right, and then horizontals out. But as you see when I switch to PKP, they both do the exact same thing. So why was this ported over as an LMG? Because the M16 is an LMG recoil pattern. And so
they said they kept it the same as it was in the original Portal, but tweaked it ever so slightly.
Yeah, and the tweak was just copy pasted, slapped on the PKP.
How did you figure out it was the PKP? Like, just pick an LMG that had that?
because I do extensive testing. I've done videos on YouTube for the meta changes for like what's the new gun to use now. So I've got other videos that I've posted. And so when I did the PKP, you know, after about 70 rounds or so, it cuts straight horizontal recoil. There's no more vertical.
Right when you get to the top of the crane there, it kind of just tapers off.
So they both do that. Right. So that's what's frustrating is not only do we wait this long for portal weapons to come over to All Out Warfare, we got no extra attachments, no All Out Warfare attachments, no tier 1 skin. You get a badge. So why am I incentivized to use these weapons at all? And they're terrible. And nobody who actually wants to play the game is going to want to use this gun. And I've been told from the controller players that the M16 is borderline unusable. Because
one quick question here. Did you test the original M16 in Portal beforehand? Like, does it have a different recoil pattern? Oh,
no, I didn't. And I, because I don't touch Portal for the most part.
Because that would be interesting to know, like, what they actually changed between the original and this one.
And is the headshot multiplier on this one on the M16 off?
It is off. It is on 2x, not 2.15.
Nice.
Okay. So yeah, and they're aware of that, I heard on Twitter, so that's going to be fixed in the next update, which unfortunately is at the end of this month, scheduled, I think, on the 27th or something.
Yeah, the 27th, yep.
Ugh. So people are going to have to slog through a lot of this, but I think by that time we should get another refresh map, I believe, in the next patch, but I'm not entirely sure. I think they said this month we would get the renewal refresh, is that correct?
The Great Sandbagging, yes.
The Great Sandbagging. Now, let's talk about that. No, we'll go back to that in a minute. I'll make a note of it about your take on the refresh maps and what they're doing so far. But let's just continue with the guns here. So you had so we showed 2 guns, right? The sidearm, the M16, which has like a whole bunch of weird recoil patterns, and the headshot multipliers off. What about the AM40?
So the AM40, the Avon, and the P51 all do SMG headshot multiplier. So they all do 1.25 instead of their respective 2 for sidearms, 2.15 for the AM40, and then the 2 for the LMGs. So the damage...
they forgot to update it.
What I think happened...
made that patch.
Yeah, so what I think happened is once they nerfed the SMGs, which was overkill, it needed to happen, but not to this extreme. But... once they put in the code for the SMGs, what my guess is that happened is that they copy pasted this, and then once they coded everything over for the new weapons and Portal, they forgot to change the lines to the new weapons, and everything was read under the SMG tree, not in their respective categories.
I see.
For the all-out warfare weapons, not for the Portal. The M60 does 2x, and the M16 does, but the M16 obviously needs the slight buff.
Okay. And do you think that'll make a difference with the AM40?
The AM40, yeah. So the AM40 has 2 problems, right? It doesn't do enough damage at the AR range, right? You're losing gunfights to everything else. All the other ARs just outperform it. It's got a good rate of fire. It can compete with all the other ARs when the headshot multiplier gets fixed. The other issue with it is it has this weird horizontal jitter that should not be on it. And so when I tested that in the range, it almost has like what the Scar had at the beginning of the game. It had horizontal jitter, which is off-putting for an 800 RPM weapon. So trying to control recoil for people who aren't as experienced in the game is going to throw them off and discourage them from using it, on top of just not doing enough damage. And the magazines are bugged as well. So the standard high power round is at 20. The standard round it says 30. It's at 20, and so on and so forth. So the drum is supposed to have 50. It has 40, which isn't that bad. But until you get to the drum mag or the extended high power round, so the 31 round mag, it's almost borderline unusable for a lot of people. You're getting 1 to 2 kills max, and for a lot of players, this is not appealing.
Right, and the other attachment is the LVG. For the M16. Or were you the first one to discover this, or someone else?
I don't remember. Stode posted the video first. I already knew about it. I didn't want to make a video, and I commented on it. In his chat, I was like, this is bugged, right? He's like, yes. And then he made a video 2 days later. I was like, anyways. And then who's the other guy? Not Level Cap.
Was it like Lossy or somebody? I don't know.
Not Lossy. No. Anyways, so I can't remember his name off the top of my head, and it's really silly, but he's the other big YouTuber for Battlefield. But Sody made the video first, where the LVG does not get recognized as a projectile to the Irish APS system. Not only that, it does not actually register as an explosive to the Dozer counter to where he takes less explosive damage. This is basically a mini nuke, and the AoE is insane on it.
And from what I've heard, the LVG is just like it was in Portal.
Correct. It was not changed.
Forgot.
It is essentially BF4 pre-nerf all over again with the LVG.
Remember the whole noob tube thing? Well, it's kind of back though. I don't know. I play like for a few hours a night. I don't see it that often, but I do notice it when someone is going crazy with it.
I feel like it was a bigger thing, especially in those early first week when literally the assignment to unlock the M16 was use the noob tube on the Scar. So, and obviously when you get the M16, it's like there are some people that are going to use it and abuse it, but I feel like the vast majority of the community is just not going to. They're not going to abuse it or just don't care to use it because, one, the gun is bad anyway, but two, they might not know that the thing even has a noob tube.
Okay. Well, with that down, let's move on to the new vehicles.
Oh, there's the advances as well.
Oh, we
the
forgot
laser
about
beam.
The advances. Yeah. What do you think about that? That has a bug too, right?
Yeah, it doesn't do the right headshot, and it's already insane as it is now. So when that gets fixed, it's going to be a real problem. You're going to see advances in the kill feed for majority of the game. And so I actually got challenged to play on controller with it, and it was actually just dumbfounded at how there is no joke, no recoil on controller for this gun once you get the attachments you need for it. None at all. And I had, Steve, who was telling me, like, the gun doesn't need a fix. I'm like, Steve, stop talking. It needs a nerf. You're delusional. I'm sorry. And on mouse and keyboard, on the mouse, there's a little vertical recoil, but it's the same vertical recoil pattern as the AR, just straight up and down. And so all you do is, here's my recoil. I pull down on the mouse. That's it. And it's a laser. It's fun to use. It's a bit overkill. And when it gets buffed to do the correct 2-shot to the head at like 40 meters, I think it's 39. It's just going to be insane.
It'll be worse than what the PKP was originally. Yeah,
it's the PKP 2.0. That is exactly what Stode told me it was after he did the playtest.
Yeah,
this is commonplace for new weapons to come out, but I didn't think so many of these new weapons would be so bugged right off the bat. It's just we talked about this on the previous episode of the BF show about just straight up quality control. And man, with such little content, like one map, holy god, we're so used to so many maps dropping at one time. Even in BF5 during their little live service, we still got a good amount of maps.
In the end,
here we're just stuck. Yeah, in the end, but here we're stuck with one map to carry us over pretty much every 3 months. And at that time, I really didn't think that was acceptable, but somehow people are just dealing with it. It's a sad state of affairs, but I don't know. I just wanted to bring up that point, but I wanted to get into vehicles. Let's talk about the one new vehicle that we got. Did you were you able to tier 1 that one too, DsciSiv, or
no?
I know Gravity probably.
Yeah, I haven't played anything but 24/7 Stranded because it's infantry only. So
okay.
You know what? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
Okay,
you can talk to.
I was just gonna bring this up briefly about 24/7 Stranded because we briefly spoke about Stranded Breakthrough last week, and I kind of laid out my thoughts about how I thought the map was really weird and maybe not properly balanced, especially on that first flag. How do you feel about Stranded Breakthrough? Like, do you feel like that initial first point is balanced with the fact that the U.S. team or whichever team is attacking literally has their border right on that flag?
So, if you spawn at the spawn for U.S. and Russia for defense, they're almost identical to distance. But the issue is that the U.S. side has way more cover getting to the point than the defending team does. The other big issue is that both teams can get on top of the boat. So the attacking team can go flank far left and, McKay grapple up and sit on top of the ship and just use like the LVG or the NCW and just rain free, shoot the defender team in the back. So really for Alpha Sector to be more balanced for defenses, the attacking team should not be able to get on top of the ship. As funny as it is, that is way unbalanced. It's not fair to the defenders. And now with the LVG being a thing, do people just get on the right side of the hill with an angel crate and they just lob tubes into the helipad or the back of it where they spawn? So it's like they have no real chance. If you've got a whole team running the LVG, they have no chance to do anything because there's no actual counter to it right now. But I think once that gets fixed specifically, it'll be a little more fair play. But the spawns have been kind of countered with everybody running spawn beacon. I've seen spawn beacons way more on this map than I've seen on any other map, which is essential. I've actually gotten rid of my C5 to run the spawn beacon because the run to get back to the objective and try to get there faster than everyone else is just too far still. Even with the improvements we've had with all the other maps being just way too out in the open, way too much running, and just not any sort of flow to it. At least this map has better flow, but it still doesn't make sense.
How would you improve the map at all? At least for breakthrough, how would you improve that design? Would you prevent anybody from getting on the top of the ship? Yeah,
so like I already said, the ship does not need attackers on it, period. That needs to be out of bounds for attackers. The right side hill, the problem that I have that I see all the time is the attacking team flocks over to the hill, which is a good viable point to have to oversee the point, but it's like half the team sits on this hill and it's not a direct line of sight to the objective. And I'm always kind of trying to tell people in chat, I'm like, hey, get off the hill, right? You only need a handful of people there to do what you need to do and then get to the objective. Because if you drop right off the hill on that right side, you're on the objective. So all they got to do is fall off the hill. There's containers there because we all love containers. They're there. You can get some cover and you can effectively contest the point. So I'm not necessarily saying remove the hill, but I think part of the hill needs to get cut off to be out of bounds. So it forces people closer to the objective and would incentivize people to camp less up there. That's really the only big issue with the first sector, because outside of that, everything is so close and there's enough cover to get from point to point without totally getting destroyed by DMRs or snipers. And now because it's so CQC, it's more explosives, APS, LVG,
right.
Even shotguns have come out more often. The 12M is a nightmare on this map.
Maybe we should talk about that briefly, because have they even mentioned that they're going to nerf that in the upcoming patch?
Nope. I don't think it ever will.
That's ridiculous.
Compared to the 880, I mean, you buff the 880, and you're going to have some serious troubles too.
But the fact that the 12M can actually just headshot across the map, that's still at this point, it just without even hip fire. And you can spam it, and it shoots faster than the actual animation. It's just
you put it on single fire, it has uncapped fire rate, by the way. So just put on single fire, you shoot faster.
Which I forgot. I actually was trying what you guys were doing on your clips and whatnot, and I couldn't do it. There was too much spread or whatever. I totally forgot to put it on single fire, and that would have done it for sure. Yep. But a little oversight there. Okay. Again, we got that one vehicle. Gravity mentioned it a lot in the previous episode, so if you want to go check that out, that's on the YouTube there. Okay. All right, next topic again is something we discussed with Catalyst HD on the previous episode, and that was the Season 3 announcement of bringing back the class system. I wanted to get your take, DsciSiv. What do you think about the class system? Is it going to fundamentally change how people play? Because you did mention a few minutes earlier that more people have gone to the spawn beacon for breakthrough, but now the spawn beacon is going to be locked to the recon class. You'll have to choose one of those guys. Do you think it's going to change anything?
Yeah, it's specifically fundamentally for the vehicle players, right? So now we're going back to the class identification of knowing who to prioritize on the battlefield, of who is potentially a threat to me, right? Like who's going to be running the recoilless or C5 or what have you, right? The stingers and soul flams and so on and so forth. So bringing that back is going to significantly increase the quality of life for vehicle players, on top of them bringing back the APS, which is already another discussion, but I saw that post that they're working on bringing that to the main vehicles, right? So the class system for infantry specifically is going to be a huge change, right? So now it's like, okay, well, I can't run medic and throw C5. I can only run medic and throw health and ammo. Whereas now McKay is going to be able to run C4 and, armor plate med pen type deal. Pake is still going to have C4, right? So now the recons only have the beacons. So now it's incentivizes more team play, right? If I want a beacon, I need someone to play recon. If I want heals, I need someone to play the medic, so on and so forth. If I want anti-vehicle, someone's got to play, Boris or whatever. So now this is going to kind of bring the whole quote unquote team play back to the fundamentals of the squads. To now I've got to change characters for the roles that I want to do instead of having this all catch one, all be all thing, right? So, and I kind of agree with keeping the weapons universal because that gives diversity and quote unquote the identification that I want to be. Like, if I want to snipe and still be a medic, I can do that. Now that still is fundamentally not Battlefield, but going back to the class system and restricting the gadgets, I think for now is enough because this isn't old gen anymore, right? We're not back in 2005, 2010, back in the class system. These new gen players want to have this sort of diversity and individuality into the game where I can run an assault character and use a shotgun, or I can use the LMG if I want. And that's fine. There's problems with that in itself, but it at least gives that player the kind of specification they want to be identified as on the game itself. But the biggest change for this is the gadget selection and the vehicles being able to identify the immediate threats.
Right. I mean, I agree with that. But where I think Gravity and Catalyst kind of disagree that. Well, let me ask you: are you just gonna play any specialists because of their traits and their gadgets, or like specific gadget, or are you gonna play for the other gadget like a recoilless?
So if I needed to switch, I will. But I've always been a medic main. I've always been a sniper main. Even on BF2, my most two used classes were medic and recon. So
Okay.
At the end of the day, I'm going to main medic and hopefully my team will switch up as they need. But if that's lacking and it needs to happen, then I'll switch, because if you're going to win the game, you've got to do the work, right? So if no one else is doing it.
Who would be your go-tos?
My go-to is still probably going to be Angel and Falk because they're the medics.
Oh, so either one. Okay.
Yeah.
And for recon?
I guess it would probably... As terrible as this is, it's probably going to be Pate because Casper's useless to me. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like, that drone is dog water. Just put that in the blender and get rid of it.
Yeah, I just use it for the battle pass missions.
Yeah, really.
To get it over with. It's just like its own little separate top-down mini game of like, ooh, look, I'm spotting the people. Look what I'm doing. Yep. And usually end up at the top of the leaderboard because them assists are pretty juicy on Breakthrough. Wow, look at that. I mean, you can go on a breakthrough right now on Stranded, and the top two people will probably be the dudes with the drone. But I make sure to shoot them down when I can. Okay, all right. I think that's a pretty good spiel right there. Gravity, anything you wanted to add to that?
Not to that part. I think DsciSiv nailed it on the head pretty much.
Oh, here's one I forgot. The refresh map. I wanted to get your take on the refresh maps and what they're doing. You be down and talk about that?
Yeah, I can give you 30 seconds on that.
God, I don't know. Okay, yeah, sure. I'm kind of curious now at this point. Okay, one real quick topic here. DsciSiv, I want to get your take on the reworked maps. Renewal is going to be the next one coming up. We just got Kaleidoscope, and then we got a bonus announcement for this season of Orbital coming by. And you got a chance to watch that little trailer there that they gave you?
Yep.
So yeah, what's your take on all this refresh stuff?
Okay. Personally, I don't know why Orbital was the bonus. Really, Hourglass needs to be the priority. I'm sorry. Orbital runs fairly okay. It's still pretty open, but Hourglass is a barren wasteland, and they clickbaited us with, "Oh, it's going to be urban warfare in the town." Like, dude, the 2/3 of the map is in open desert, man. So the renewal one that's cool. Kaleidoscope got changed. That was neat. But I mean, really, why weren't the maps made this way at the beginning of the game? Right. That's my issue. Did they really think releasing this game for 1 to 28 players was going to be good? And it just tells me that they didn't actually play test this and thought, yeah, this is fine. Yeah, this is good. Just send it. Right. You know what I mean? So I almost laughed out loud when they were like, yeah, we heavily play test these. I'm like, no, you don't. Stop. Just stop it. And so the reworks are good. Finally, you're getting cover. You're getting viable things to work around and run it to point without just getting blasted by a sniper or a DMR, which is nice.
Right.
But why was this not at launch? That's my biggest complaint. We have to wait 6 months for one map rework, and now we're getting 2 more 11 months in. Like, dude, how is that okay?
Yeah, me and Gravity were talking about this. Like, I would say screw the refresh maps and give us new maps at this point. Wouldn't you agree?
Man. Yeah.
I'd rather get like 3 maps this season than new ones.
Let me phrase it this way: in the end, once they refresh all the old maps, are you going to want to play them in a playlist?
I mean, yeah, I'll play them either way, but I would probably be more inclined to want to play them if they flowed better. But we need more content, so I'm more get more content out first, and then come back and rework, right?
Yeah, but it's too late now, right?
Oh, dude, that ship is not even sailed. It's at the bottom of the Atlantic. So,
yeah, I mean, like they said in the article, expect the same amount of content throughout all the rest of the seasons,
and that concerns me.
Sad.
That concerns me due to the whole stranded map, because I mean, a lot of people noticeably, pointed out that, hey, you threw a discarded ship in the middle of the desert and called it a map pretty much. You tinkered with the terrain, you added some assets inside and outside, but it seemed like maybe this was a map that kind of required the least amount of work possible compared to exposure or something. It makes me wonder whether or not we're gonna have something this small of a map for the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, I hope not, because I think the reason this map came out was to appease to the infantry only players like myself. The inside of the ship for CQC is, without the meta being the way it is, would be fantastic. But the way that people play the game right now, it's borderline. I want to bash my head in my keyboard at times. So it's good for the infantry play. It's very simplistic. And I don't think there was a whole lot of time creating this on the spreadsheet and then getting it out into the design. So I agree. It's very kind of, here's a ship, here's some trees, here's a bunch of desert with 2 tornadoes, by the way.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. Thanks, guys.
We got more assets to play with, of course.
So, I agree that it's pretty simple, but I think it kind of satisfies what a lot of people have been complaining about with not a lot of CQC environment. So for that part of the community, I think it works, but as a whole, I can see where it's, hey man, we really didn't put a whole lot of effort into this, and we're going to tell you that we did, but I mean, dude, it's like one ship with a bunch of containers and that's it. So
yeah.
I have one last issue to ask you about. Since you are obviously one of the people at the top of the leaderboard and have a ton of playtime, since the patch, have you noticed or experienced the bug with regards to fully auto weapons stuttering and not shooting, like having a pausing mid fire?
All the time.
Yeah,
all the time. It's very prevalent on the Avon, the PF51, and the MP9. I've seen them noticeably on those. It happens on the AK. It did it to me on the M5 today. So at least that's been addressed. But again, how does this get jacked up?
It happens on vehicles too. It happens on the HMG and stuff, and the LMG on tanks as well. And it happens on portal servers. I was just kind of curious to see if you've noticed any patterns to it, like if it happens during the beginning or the end of a round, or if there's a storm out, or if there's if you're doing something to kind of trigger it.
No, I don't think so. I think it's just completely random, because it'll even do it to me in the range, like you saw with the M16 video. Even in the range, I get the weapon stuttering. So I don't think it's an environment thing or how long you've been in the playing on that map or per se. I think it's just a serious coding issue that happened when they released the patch, which is, when you patch a bunch of things, you break a bunch of other things, and this is one of the things that got broken.
Okay, DsciSiv, thank you so much for joining us this time around on the Battlefield show. Hope you had a good time. Where can people find you? You're streaming a lot, so they'll probably find you on Twitch, right?
Yeah. I'm on Twitch and then on YouTube and Twitter, right? So I post all the updates on Twitter. I make videos for YouTube, and I'm streaming pretty much every day.
All right, great. We'll have your links down below in the channel description. Go check out DsciSiv #1 player 2042. Man, I hope you get to rank S999, be the first legit player to do that. I think that'll be quite an achievement. But I worry for your brain, sir.
Well, I'm in the military, so it's already gone.
Well, I wish you luck. DsciSiv, thank you so much for being on the Battlefield show. And to everyone out there, leave your comments down below, and we'll catch you on the next one.